Bless each and every one of you. Today we have a special guest, with Mr. Griffin in the room. We'll come to him in a wee minute. First of all, I'll just check. Are you there, Mr. Griffin? Good stuff. He's there, all ready to go. So we'll go through some stuff first. Obviously, as usual, I like to thank everybody for taking the time to come in here. I'm sorry I'm a bit dishevelled, but been out working again, sleeves rolled up, you got to get in this. So I'm sorry, I've just had to throw the jacket on and go in here. It's, again, bitterly cold. We're still working well on there. We're trying to work the outside wall so we can get an actual cross done in brick blocks, the red blocks set into the brickwork. So we have a cross, so when the lights are on in the building, that projects that cross out across the town. And I think that'll be really nice. But big problems because you've got to get a header in and all technical engineering stuff. But we shall overcome. Remember that? We shall overcome. Maybe no for us, but we're going to get it done. Don't worry about it. Leave it to me. Sean Smiley, God bless the Templars from Pittsburgh. Yes, good old Pittsburgh. That's good stuff. We've been up there, nice town. Hold on, who was there? Nick. Who else is there? Sean Smiley. Okay, Lady Matriarch, God bless you. Ralph Rowley, Jonathan Bedeen and his good lady, God bless you. Gary Hardwick, Bartley Burker, Delicious Sang. Don't know who that is. That's a troll. Get rid of them. Bartley Burker, yeah. Ewan Eggerstrom, Templar Guard, Jim Young and Tony Robello, Mr. Johansson. Oh, they're all in the day, these mad trolls. Okay, who else have we got? Templar Guard, Johnston, yep. Let me see. Colette Whitney, God bless you. How are you? Tim Schroeder, how you doing? Tim, I'm going to try and give you a call on Saturday. Spoke to your wife today. Good stuff. Welcome on board, brother. And look forward to speaking to you. Who else have we got? Elliot Lamb, how you doing? Wee Mouse, I spoke to the Wee Mouse herself, yes. Colette Whitney, Gary Hardwick. What was that there? I seen somebody there. Christian Bosio, how are you? Nice to see you. Wes Stower, God bless you. Miss Sherry B, lovely to see you. Peter Smith from Manchester, good. Greg Howarth, how are you? Lady Rother, good old Lady Rother. Nick, he's in the room anyway. I'm going to speak to him on it. Paul Telford, God bless you. Malcolm Cook. Peter Smith, yep. Who else have we got? Andy McBride, hope you're doing okay, Andy. How you doing? Brian Payton, keep going. Troy Otto in Florida. That's about it. Right, we'll crack on with this. Peter Holders, the Scorpion, Ryan McGinley. Yeah, they're all there. But listen, let's make a start. And I hope you all enjoyed Jada Franson's show, the British Freedom Party, and Nick on last night as a guest. I know there's a lot of people in the room, and very few trolls, and the trolls that seem to get in the room are attacking me. Bizarre. Uncle Paddy, how you doing? Hans Blitz, hello, how you doing? New here, Hans Blitz is new. Well, Hans, one of the things we try and keep to real names here. It discourages the weirdos and the crackpots and the cranks. So unless you're a policeman or something like that and you can't have your name known, we tend to use our own names. And if you're a policeman or something, it's very, very sensitive. Use at least a part of your real name, okay? Joseph Florence, how you doing? So that's what we try and do, because if you look at all the other feeds, it's all fake names and they all talk utter garbage. And you don't do it if you're using your own name, because if you say something outrageous, you could be prosecuted or you could be killed. So best use your own name. All right, how are we doing? I want to read a wee bit of scripture, as we always do. I'm in Proverbs. I like Proverbs. This is chapter 11. I'm going to read verses 2, 3 and 4. When pride cometh, then cometh shame, but with lowly is wisdom. The integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. Riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. Amen. What good? Just let that last verse sink in there. Riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. How true. My mother used to say, there's no pockets in a shroud. You come into this world naked, penniless, and you go out the same way. And that's it. Money will not help you in what's coming. And you're going to see, I think we all know now, and I think we all agree, that this is all about a giant reset of everything. So if your money's tied up in your house, and I know the English are into that, property and retirement's in the house, you're going to have nothing. By the end of that, houses will be worth nothing. In a couple of years' time, if you're sitting in a £400,000 house right now, you'll be lucky if you get 50 grand for it. Everything's going to be reset. Everything's going to come down. So if you're trusting in riches, my friend, I'm telling you right now, you'll be left with nothing. So if you've got any money, put it in gold, real stuff, real things that actually are real and nobody can affect, apart from going up. But if you get money stuffed under your bed or in the bank, get it out and transfer it into something real. If you don't, you're going to lose it. You don't believe me? Well, I'm sure Mr. Griffin will tell you this. He'll tell you this. A few years ago, the government of an EU country, not some wacko African despotic republic, an EU country, Cyprus, the government went into the banks and took everybody's money. Do you remember that, Mr. Griffin?
I do indeed.
They took
truly shocking. It was done then. No one anywhere in the West kicked up about it. So it can be done again, and it will be done again.
And I'm not talking about just taking rich people's money. They took everybody's money.
Yeah. Just one word on that, Jim. A word of warning. You're right about gold. It is, the ultimate hedge. It can go up, it can go down, but it's always going to be there. But in America in the 1930s, the government literally confiscated everybody's gold as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So buy gold carefully, buy it cash, etc., where you can, and squirrel it away. Don't put it in the bank, and make sure that it's hidden. Simple as that.
Absolutely. That's it. You're allowed in Britain to walk into the gold exchange and buy £5,000 worth a day without giving your details. That's what to do. Pay it in cash, take it away, and bury it. Hide it. Don't put it in a bank safety deposit box, because you'll never see it again. It'll be gone. That's what's coming. So remember, as the Bible says here, riches profited not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. And that's what matters. So we know God will bless this, the public reading of his inspired, infallible, and inerrant word. Amen and amen. So that's where we are. We've got our special guest on today. I've said hello to everybody. God bless each and every one of you. I want to bring Mr. Griffin on now to see where we are. Hello, Mr. Griffin. What have you got for us today, sir?
Hello, Jim. Well, a few things. Just before we get into that, Jim, I'd like to follow up one more thing on what we were just talking about, because there's plenty of people out there who can't afford any amount of gold that's worthwhile. So if you're in that position, well, as a matter of fact, one of the reasons people have gold is so that if things are really extreme, they can buy food. So you can short-circuit the process simply by buying food, things like dry food like pasta, rice, and so on. You can buy it, keep it. If nothing goes wrong, you can always eat it. If prices go up, you'll save money. And if the stuff really hits the fan, you're going to be a lot better off than people who haven't bothered at all. So even if it's a few extra tins of beans and so on, it's the difference between being uncomfortable very quickly and having a little bit of time to think and breathe while all the others run around like headless chickens. It'll never do you any harm.
I just noticed there, a good sister there, Colette Whitney, says, what about putting a safe in your home? Why don't you just put a big sign in your front garden saying, come, I'll show you where the money's hidden? No, they will take your money. They will come and get it. And if anybody breaks in, they know exactly where to go. They'll find a safe. Believe me, they're not small things. No. Just think of a most ingenious place to hide it. And I've seen people, for example, taking the skirtings off round their doors, taking it off very carefully. There's usually bits of loose brick there, clawing out a wee area there, and then putting whatever they need in there, and then putting the thing back, or out somewhere in the garden under a tree, wherever. Do not put it in a safe in your house, because it's pretty easy to find. So there we go. A fake radiator. Yeah, there's another. No, listen. Use women are the most ingenious creatures on the planet when it comes to dispersing money. Don't ask us men. You're the experts at it. So you tell us, no us tell you. You're the experts in this field. You know that. So yes, Mr. Griffin, what else have we got?
Well, Jim, I thought we'd talk about something which we haven't touched on for quite some time because it's been sidelined by the COVID pandemic, although of course the two are very much connected, and that's the climate change hoax, the one which they were trying to use as the excuse for the great economic and social reset, but it wasn't really working, so they brought the COVID thing in instead. But the climate change thing is still there, obviously, or the allegations of man-made climate change, and you'll know, Jim, everyone would have seen, every time they do talk about it, they show a picture of a melting glacier, normally in Greenland. And they've been saying for quite some time, it's all to do with global warming, that the glaciers of central Greenland, especially central East Greenland, the bit that sort of faces on to Iceland, that they're melting at a really rapid rate. So this is further proof that we're right, and we've all got to change our ways, and everyone except the elite has got to get up flying, etc., etc. And I wanted to start off by saying that I've got a fascinating story I found in a magazine called Solid Earth, the Journal of Geophysical Research. And this has found that the melting of the ice in central Greenland is being accelerated, they say, by the heat of molten rocks rising from the core mantle, according to a study by Japanese researchers. Mr. Techie, if we can have the first picture. Yeah, so this gives you a vague idea of what's going on. You see, so the red blob on the right is going up to Greenland. It's going up to Iceland, and then in the slightly to the left of the picture, you've got Greenland. So that map's covering a vast area. Now, this study was undertaken by geophysicist Genti Toyokuni and colleagues from the Tohoku University in Sendai on the east coast of Japan. They're particularly into studying volcanoes and such like because Japan's got volcanoes, and as you know, they have tsunamis and such like after earthquakes. So they're among the world's experts. And this team determined that the Greenland molten plume rises up from the Earth's core, and as it rises, it divides, and it heats a vast area. One of it comes out actually almost in Norway. So they've used seismic waves, a bit like a human CT scan, to create a picture of what's going on under the Earth. And that's where they found that there's these enormous plumes of molten lava, and that is what is heating the Greenland ice sheet and creating the melt. This isn't just me saying this. The chief researcher says that, quote, his findings will shine a light on the problematic issue of global sea level rise caused by the melting of the Greenland ice sheet. So all those melting glacier pictures and videos and so on, now we know what's going on. Now, of course, the climate change people will say, that's just Greenland. Yeah, what about the ice that's melting under the Antarctic? There's no glaciers there. Oh, yes, there are. I did a bit of a research, and the team of scientists from the University of Rhode Island School of Oceanography have discovered absolute proof of the existence of a massive volcanic heat source sitting just beneath West Antarctica's Pine Island Glacier, which is the one which, if they show you pictures of rapidly melting ice in the Antarctic, it's generally that one. So, mystery solved.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. I mean, it's just ludicrous. The whole thing is ludicrous. But they're going to use this. And Britain's talking about cutting their carbon footprint in the next 16 years. That's going to mean, folks, listen, you won't have a car. Now, because that's ridiculous, Jim. Look, I grew up in a working class part of central Scotland. And there was one vehicle in our whole street. And we had 300 houses. Maybe the street was maybe almost a mile long. Now, we had hundreds of children. I used to go to school with 2 double-decker buses from my street, not from the housing estate, from my street. And there was one vehicle on the street. That was my father's van, because he was a mechanic, worked for a big bakery firm, so he had the van. There was no other car in the entire street, a mile-long street, no cars, none, zero. So we're only 40 years into working-class people having cars. And in 20 years, working-class people won't have cars. That's the way it's going to be, because they're going to ban everything or make them so wretchedly expensive you won't be able to run one. So you won't be banned. They're not going to ban you from owning a car. They'll just price you out the game. It's the same as you won't be forced to take the COVID injection. But if you don't, you won't be going anywhere. That's the way it is. Subtle persecution, Mr.
Absolutely.
Griffin.
Yep, and it is much more than that. This brings me on nicely, Jim, to the next bit. I looked, and in fact, I found this the day before yesterday when I was going to be on. This was a piece in the Daily Mail in Britain, because, as we've already noted, the climate change business was the excuse for global governance, which is now being very much sidelined by the COVID hoax. But they are connected, and when you say that people are not going to be able to afford cars, won't be able to travel, won't have to have the vaccine, but there's other things exactly the same. So the headline in the Mail the other day was, head of the UK vaccine research force blames the emergence of coronavirus on, quote, unstable agricultural practices and the climate crisis, unquote. Now, this is a lady by the name of Kate Bingham, and if Mr. Techie, we can have a look at the lovely Kate.
Yes.
So this is the lady who's in charge of the British government's task force on vaccines. And she's saying that we're going to face new pandemics in the future. And she's saying that zoonotic diseases, such as COVID-19, a zoonotic disease is one that originates in animals, are intensifying, increasing in number as humans encroach further on wildlife habitats. And she says that another such pandemic is highly likely, so the UK should put in place the infrastructure, capabilities and governance to ensure the country is better prepared to respond rapidly to future threats and outbreaks. So we know what's coming. Where are we here? Wait a moment. Yes, now in October, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, claim that there could be as many as 850,000 as yet undiscovered viruses in birds and mammals that could jump to humans. And another one study by the University College of London, who of course are very, very heavily involved in both the man-made climate change hoax, and especially the early stages of the COVID pandemic hoax. They say that researchers have found that animals can carry infectious diseases like Ebola and the virus causing COVID-19, and they thrive in man-made habitats such as cities and farmland. So you see, they've done this little side shift from worrying about Africans eating baboons and things to all of a sudden the problem is actually cities and farmland. So this is now our problem, it's our fault. And they say, the UCL team say, that changing farming methods may therefore help reduce the risk of future infectious disease outbreaks that are as deadly as COVID-19. Oh, got to be careful then, haven't we? Now, we've already seen how the COVID is used by people with an agenda. In Denmark, in particular, they killed all the mink. Yep. This is the mink being bred for fur farming. Now, I wouldn't want to wear fur. I think it's a bit creepy to kill animals to wear just luxury products. But mink are pretty vile creatures anyway, and I'm not too fussed about mink. But in any case, if you were fussed about the minky rights of mink, all the mink in Denmark now don't have any rights at all because they are all dead and buried in holes in the ground. And it's because it's claimed that they were carrying the COVID-19 virus. Even if they were, so what? It'd be foolish to have someone who's 80-year-old and monstrously fat working in the fur farm with them. But apart from that, it couldn't do any harm. But you see, the animal rights people, these total crackpots, have had it in for fur farming for a long time. So this is now the great excuse to get rid of it. And having established that precedent, from fur, it's a very, very small shift to meat. Yeah. And as you were saying, Jim, you won't be banned from having a car. You won't be able to afford to have a car. You won't be banned from eating meat. You won't be able to afford to eat meat once they've got rid of the large-scale, basically factory farming, which again has got its problems, but they should be put right. They're going to get rid of the whole lot. So the only people who'll be able to afford to eat decent meat will be the very, very rich. You can have the free range from inoculated herds, etc., etc. This is where we're going. Now, a little bit about Ms. Bingham, because looking at her, you'd think, oh dear, what on earth is this sort of troll-like creature from some sociology department at university? No, Miss Bingham is a British biochemist and a venture capital manager. She's the daughter of Baron Bingham of Cornhill. She went to Oxford University. She got a first-class MA in biochemistry. Then she went to Harvard Business School, where she got an MBA. She's worked in business development for a whole host of the big pharma companies. Very, very powerful and effective woman. But she's never done anything at all with vaccines. Nothing. She's been on the board, she is on the boards of various of these giant pharma companies, but she's never got anything to do with vaccines. So the Sunday Times even, which is in with all of this, at the start of last month, said that she'd shared official sensitive information about the UK vaccine plans with private companies, and the Times said she'd been appointed to the task force despite having no vaccine experience, but just mentioning that she happens to be married to the Conservative Government Minister Jessie Norman, who's the Financial Secretary to the Treasury. So yet again, it's a Tory government, so you'd expect it, but it's the same with all the political elite. It's just a question, an appalling question of sleaze, shameless sleaze.
Well, I couldn't agree. I mean, this is the way it is. But I just want to say to your American brothers, because I think their food is ridiculously cheap. But I'm going to tell the Americans here, if we want a bit of fillet steak, I don't know what you call that in America, fillet steak, the really good cut, the really, really best cut of steak. In this country, it's about £35 per kilo. So what's that? So that's about 40 some, say $45 a kilo. So it's about £20, $20 for a pound of good fillet steak. How much is a pound of fillet steak in America? Because we would have to pay about $20. At least $20 for fillet steak for a pound. £1 of fillet steak in this country costs $20. How much is it in America? I'd like to know that. And the other point, Nick, people were saying there, well, I'll give people time to answer. Tenderloin, that's it. Something like that. Elliot Lamb on here said, what are they talking about pollution? 50, 60 years ago in London, you couldn't see that. You couldn't see that distance with the smog. I grew up in the 1970s and 80s, and I couldn't see my town most of the time, and the football was called off almost every Saturday in the winter for smog. You couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. And in the 1950s, men had to walk with lamps in front of the buses to, because nobody could see anything. What are they talking about? So there's somebody saying there it's about £8.99, £9 to $9 to $13. So we're roughly double. We're double what you pay for meat. We're already in this country double. I can't afford to eat meat. I mean, it's once every 2 or 3 months I will get a big lump of steak, but I just can't afford to do it, and not everybody in the house can get it. So because I'm the man, I get it. No, I'm only kidding, but we just can't afford. We can't afford. We can't afford to eat good quality meat all the time because it's too expensive. I mean, imagine you're paying like $40 to $45 for £2 of fillet steak. I don't know what the prices are like you. Are they the same down there in Wales, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, Jim, on the Welsh-Shropshire border, and we've got livestock all around us. But yeah, it's terribly expensive and getting more so. And it's going to get more so because what we've now got, democracy has been replaced completely in the last few months. We've had a coup, and we're now governed by a technocracy, which is dominated by two forces, by Big Pharma and by big agribusiness. And these are the people, precisely the people, when they're saying, oh, we're going to have to give up lots of meat and so on. But don't worry, because we're going to be able to spin meat. We'll have artificially created meat made from soy and so on. With their friends growing it, their companies with the patents making it, and their giant supermarkets selling it. So that's what's going on. It's going to get a lot worse. And this brings me on to the third point, Jim, and we'll finish up for today. From me, that everyone talking about what's going on are, of course, now under intense censorship. We in the Templars were among the first, and everyone's now getting in the neck. As we discussed the other week, UK military intelligence are now targeting critics of the completely new technology vaccine that we're being forced to take, because as you say, if you don't take it, you won't be allowed to function in normal society. Anyone even saying, I don't like this, they're getting zapped by British military intelligence, by Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. But I wanted to give just a light-hearted side tonight, Jim, to finish off on the problem of censorship. So I'm not belittling the problem. We know better than most people how bad it already is, let alone how bad it's going to get. But this one was funny because I came across the story of a desperately dangerous gang of heavily armed dissidents. Mr. Techie, if we have a picture of these monsters, this is in the West Country of England. Yeah, there we are. This is the Dorset Historical Reenactment Society, the Wimborne Militia. And they recreate the 1685 Monmouth Rebellion, when one of the last Catholic kings of England was opposed by a Protestant rebellion, I believe, by an illegitimate nephew, the Duke of Monmouth, and the West Country rose for the Duke and for their Protestant religion, and were duly slaughtered at the Battle of Sedgemoor, and the survivors mainly hung by hanging Judge Jeffreys. So it didn't end well. But the good worthies of the Wimborne Militia do all sorts of things. In particular, they're much in demand, apparently, for turning on the Christmas lights in towns down in the West Country, or down in Somerset. But their Facebook pages, not just their main page, but that of all the people connected with the Wimborne Militia, were taken down at the start of this week because Facebook had decided that any mention of militia means you're a far-right, fascist, racist, nasty extremist. So it had to be banned. So 5 of the 60 members of the Wimborne Militia had their Facebook accounts disabled. Wow. As part of course, a Facebook operation which has removed thousands of accounts, pages and groups under part of what they call a policy expansion. And this is affecting, as we know, everybody. You talk about the vaccine, you're gone. You talk about the COVID hoax, you're gone. You talk about climate change issues, you're gone. And you mention militia, and you're gone.
Easy.
In August, Facebook banned, it's really serious this, so that was absurd, but it is serious. Facebook banned in August alone 900 pages, that's 900 accounts, about the problem of pedophilia in the ruling elite in the USA. Now, some of that stuff may be conspiracy theory, which goes too far. Maybe. I don't know. I think it's entirely possible that when you're dealing with people who have no limits on their power, let alone people who are consciously and deliberately anti-God at the best, if not actually Satanist, I think it's highly likely that you have indeed got paedophile sex rings operating. But whether you have or whether you haven't, people are or should be entitled, and certainly in the USA with the First Amendment, they're entitled to talk about it. They're entitled to tell people their theories, just as other people are entitled to look at the theory and say, well, this one holds water and this one doesn't. That's what freedom in the public square is all about. But now these people control the public square so much, freedom is gone. And Brian Fishman, who runs Facebook's global counterterrorism team, said on Wednesday that they've identified more than 300 groups under the policy which Wimborne Militia fell foul of, and removed more than 6,500 groups and pages in less than 1 month.
Wow.
So the only good news I can bring you there, Jim, is that the worthies of the Wimborne Militia have now been reinstated, so people would be able to see them going on to turn the Christmas tree lights if they were allowed to. But they ain't.
Ridiculous. Well, it's so bizarre because, right-wing people, we've no bank accounts. We've all got bank accounts. I think even Jada gets stripped to bank accounts on a regular basis. But here in Northern Ireland, we have hardcore Marxist terror groups who kill people, who have killed people openly. Killed a journalist there last year. They have bank accounts. They have Facebook accounts. Yes. And you know yourself, all the lefty militias, the lefty killers, the Antifa people, they've all got Facebooks. None of them have been removed. None of them.
Yep.
None of them have been removed. And they've got all the services open to them that are denied to us. So you know where this is going. If this was across the board, I'd still disagree with it, but I could see where we're going. But no, terror groups, left-wing, Marxist terror groups in Ireland, they've all got Facebooks. They've all got Twitter accounts. They've got bank accounts. One of them's had their bank account seized at the moment because of some investigation, but the bank account's still open, just been seized. But, this is what's going on. This is the same group that blew up the banks a few years ago. It's madness. These are violent killers. And they've all got bank accounts, they've all got Facebooks, they've all got Twitter, and they've all got everything else. YouTube's the lot. Yet, we've
Sure.
nothing.
If they blow up the bank stream, they can't be all
No,
bad,
they
can
can't. No, it's probably one of the only good things ever done. Now, were you going to read a wee bit, because I've been teasing people, Mr. Griffin, about the new book that's coming out.
Yes. Well, the answer is yes, Jim. I have got something
Yeah.
to read here. Not from the new book yet, although I've got a piece which perhaps we could do next
Yeah.
week just to give people a flavour of it. But as you know, we're quite some way off getting that to print, and the rush this week has been getting the Deus Vult reprint sorted out. And so, as I said last week, I've sorted out a shameful number of typos and errors. Don't tell anybody, they won't notice. I don't know how many people noticed the last 4 pages are duplicate. But it's past they thought, oh, it's so important, I want to read it twice. I don't know. Anyway, all these things are put right. And I have taken the liberty as I've gone of where I've seen points which can be better put, whether just in terms of the literacy of it or in terms of getting the point across. I had taken the liberty of changing particularly the essays that I've done personally. So I would say it's, as I said the other day, it's the same book, but it is better. But the only thing that is really new is the preface to the second edition. And I thought, Jim, it's a bit unfair that our people on the show, virtually everyone's got a copy. And it's really unfair, I think, that they'd have to buy another one of essentially the same book just to read the preface to the second edition. So I'll read you out the preface to the second edition. Here we go. I think it's about 3 pages. It won't take us too long. As I completed the task of compiling the contributions of its various authors into the initial draft of Deus Vult, I knew that we had a potential classic on our hands. Even at that early stage, I could tell immediately that I had before me a book of great import and gravitas, a volume that would change lives and thence, potentially, history itself. I knew also that the words and spirit of this remarkable compilation cried out to be presented to the wider world in a book of rare quality, even beauty, and so it was. Even so, when our St Bernard's Priory took delivery of several pallet loads of the first edition of Deus Vult late in October 2020, we never for one moment expected that the demand would be so great that we would have to order a reprint before Christmas the same year. In the event, our wonderful printer told us apologetically that the first slot he could set aside for us would be early in the new year, as soon as he and his team started work after their well-earned holiday. Even with that slight delay, however, this second edition follows the first in just under 3 months. This is a remarkable achievement for an organisation with no previous modern experience in publishing or base for selling books, and it is testament to the power, appeal, and very timely appearance of Deus Vult. In preparing this second edition, we've taken the opportunity not only to correct the typographical errors which regrettably slipped through into the first, but also to make a number of minor stylistic improvements and to clarify several points which have been raised by the intelligent and welcome feedback of some of our brethren. Although the same book, this new edition may be justly described as even better. I told you that before, didn't I? Checking the text word for word and line for line while proofreading, I was struck with the depth of foresight to be found in chapter after chapter. Not just the most immediately relevant, in the light of the events of the closing months of the year of publication, chapters such as Tooth Fairy Politics and Alabama and the End of History, but many of the other essays as well. Some of the contents of The Robots Are Coming and Global Woman Religion, for example, display far-sightedness that verges on the uncanny. Then there are the chapters giving personal advice and firm proposals for tactical and strategic advances. Others focus our attention on the urgent need for a spiritual response to a set of interlocking crises which, though at first sight materialistic, have at their black heart a literary satanic origin, and thence demand above all else a spiritual, Christian response. These chapters especially emerge already in hindsight as words of wisdom which are even more timely and crucial than when first published. Yet they are clearly destined to become even more so in the years ahead, as the already naked tyranny, whose latest rebranding as the Great Reset, finds new fetters with which to shackle the people and binds the nations in darkness. I will not keep you from the knowledge, challenges and inspiration which I pray you will find as you read on. One final word of advice may, however, be helpful. This is to pass on to you the most common feedback of all from the thousands of readers from all walks of life and all over the world, who bought and devoured the first edition. However much you enjoy it, however thirsty you are for the water of truth, however hungry you are for the meat of positive advice and well-founded hope, take your time. Take this book, the consensus goes, one chapter at a time, one per day. Having read the chapter, think about it. Sometimes it may be helpful to go and do some research of your own to confirm that something that surprised, maybe shocked, or even offended you is indeed true. More often than not, it is a matter of taking time to appreciate what you've just read means for you and how it may, perhaps even should, impact upon your life. There is an English word which is actually far more appropriate and useful in this context than think. It is a word which you may not have heard or even considered for quite a long time, because it very much predates our current era of information overload, instant choice, impulse buys, instant gratification, built-in obsolescence, and general physical, mental, and spiritual junk. The word is ponder. It comes to us straight from Middle English, which means that it was already old when William Shakespeare used it. It describes thought which is much more serious and measured than mere thinking. Ponder means to appraise, to judge the worth. It derives from the old French pondere, consider, which in turn came from the Latin ponderare, to weigh, reflect on. The original Latin root was pondus, meaning weight, and the advice to weigh up each chapter before moving on to the next has come to us for so many readers that I have no hesitation in echoing their recommendation and sharing their sound advice with you, and incidentally thanking everyone on this chat show, Jim, this show, who has taken the time to tell us, because it largely comes from you good people. I carry on. Yeah. The words and wisdom within these pages certainly will not vanish, even if you take your time and reread those chapters which speak most directly to you before you move on. The book itself is printed and bound to a quality that guarantees that those copies which survive the flames of censorship and persecution, which will surely come as the time of chastisement bites, will endure and inspire for centuries to come. As I write this, I look across to a bookshelf on which rests a leather-bound copy of the collected works of William Shakespeare. It was printed some years before the American War of Independence. There is not one in 1,000 books printed these days, perhaps not one in 10,000, which will not fall apart, fade into oblivion, and crumble to dust in a fraction of that time. This book is different. It is not, of course, as eternal as the core tenets and truths on which it is based, but it is made to last, because its message will be needed for generations to come. The seeds it plants in our time may spring up and bear fruit with a speed that astounds us all, or those which will bear the most important fruit may rest dormant for a generation or two before they sprout, mature, and provide a bountiful harvest in the future of our kin. Sooner or later, which it will be is not for us to know, but it will be, and it will make all the difference. Deus Vult.
Deus Vult. Wonderful words, Mr. Griffin. God bless you. Well, thank you for that. And, I'll just say to the people who've got the first edition with the wee minor mistakes in it, don't worry, because you watch the programmes, Antique Hunters, your book will be worth 10 times the money anybody else's is, because you have the strange book with the double paragraph or something. Seriously, your book will be the sought-after book in 20 years. Don't worry about it. But that's what happens when you're doing books. You have to review them and do them. But we've no idea we're going to have to print this again so soon, within 3 months. It's nuts. And I say, we're not on Facebook, we're not on anything like that. But the book is going mad. Now, we are going to put up, the links to the book. Take the links. You can share them. Share them on Facebook. Share them on your social media and get them out there. But we're doing that, getting the reprint, and then we're going to launch a new book in the new year, which is going to blow your socks off, but we'll tell you more about it. So listen, Mr. Griffin, thank you very much for joining us today and a wonderful discussion. God bless you. And if you want to come on, we'll get you on again next week.
I'll be fine. I look forward to that.
Good night. All the best. God bless you. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Well, our time is against us. Tomorrow I'm on a radio show in America. What's it called? The Political Cesspit or something?
The Political Cesspool.
The Political Cesspool.
James Edwards.
Aye, Mr. Edwards. What's his name?
James Edwards. Don't be put off with the name Political Cesspool. There's nothing mucky about it. It's really good, really sound. He's a good Christian nationalist. I'm sure it'll be a great show.
Okay, I look forward to it. Well, there you go. All right, Mr. Griffin. Well, as Nick explained, this book, it's not just a great book contents-wise, but we've actually went to the trouble of making sure we sent it to one of Europe's top-end printers. Real top-end printer. And any of you have got the book, I'm not talking nonsense. It is an exquisitely bound book, because all the other books are made by what you call bulked up paper, and that's to make books look thick. I'll give you an example. Mark Collett's got a book called The Fall of Western Man. It's actually slightly less pages than this, with 30 less pages, but it's about this thick. That's bulked up print. Not that he's done anything wrong or anything like that, but that's how they print books, so it gives them a bit of weight to give it gravitas. Our book is half the thickness because it's high-end paper. The binding's high-end, that's why it's rounded at the edges. We could probably do this for a third of the price if we just go down the route of everybody else. But this is 3 times the price because, as Nick said, we want somebody to have this on their shelf in 250 years. So, with the Templars, we're a long-term people. We think in centuries. We don't think in years or decades. We think in centuries. So when we went to get this book done, we had no hesitation. It must be done right. It must be done to the highest quality. And that's it. So that's what we do. And we make very little on these books, and if they're going to Australia and America, we really make nothing because the postage is horrendous. But we do it because we want to get it out there. So fantastic. Okay, that's all from me today. I'll be back with you tomorrow, God spares me. I've got a very busy schedule this next few days, and on the American show tomorrow night, midnight my time, which is about 6 p.m. Eastern time in America, the Political Cesspool or Cesspit, something like that. Cesspool. Cesspool. Political cesspool with Mr. James Edwards. If any know of it, tune in, I'll be there. And that's it. So, God spares me, I shall be here tomorrow. And remember, until then, stick close to... Oh, sorry. Let me just say, we're supposed to bring a financial report today, but I forgot Mr. Griffin was on. So tomorrow we're going to bring you the financial figures and see where we are with the building fund and all the rest of it. And remember, like the video, click subscribe, press the bell, comment below, and share. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. God spares me. Remember, until then, stick close to God. You won't go far wrong. Do as fault.